The crystal towers of luminous Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Ambassador Thailand stood on the highest platform of the central spire, watching the peaceful world that had known no war for 3,000 years. The Velaran people moved gracefully through their floating gardens, their translucent skin glowing softly in the twin suns' light. But today, peace was ending. Ambassador, the long-range sensors have confirmed it, Captain Nexus said, his voice trembling. Despite his military training, the Krathan Empire fleet will reach our system in 47 hours. Thailand closed his 4 eyes and felt his heart sink. The Krathan were known throughout the galaxy as destroyers. They took worlds not for resources or territory, but for the simple joy of conquest. Entire civilizations had vanished under their black ships. How many vessels? Thailand asked. Over 2,000 warships. Their fleet is 10 times larger than our entire defense force. Nexus paused. And Ambassador, our weapons are designed for protection, not attack. Our shields can hold for perhaps 6 hours against their assault. The Velaran had built their society on harmony and knowledge. Their greatest achievements were in art, science, and philosophy. War was something they studied in ancient history books, not something they prepared for. What about evacuation? Thailand asked. Even if we had enough transport ships, where would we go? The Krathan control or threaten every system within 50 light years. No one will risk war with the Empire to shelter refugees. Thailand walked to the communication array. His people needed hope, even if he had none to give. Prepare a galaxy-wide distress signal. Broadcast on all frequencies. Sir, regulations require... Forget regulations, Captain. Send the call to every civilization in our database. Tell them the Velaran people need immediate evacuation assistance. Offer them our entire knowledge archive in return for safe passage for our citizens. As Nexus worked on the transmission, Thailand gazed down at the Crystal City. Children played in the bioluminescent parks. Scholars debated in the learning centers. Artists created beauty that would soon be ash under Krathan weapons. The first response came within an hour. The Altrurian Confederacy expressed deep sympathy, but explained they could not risk Krathan retaliation. The response pattern continued: sympathy, regret, and fear. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy seemed to know the same truth. No one fought the Krathan Empire and survived. Ambassador, Nexus called out, we're receiving another response, but the signal is strange. It's coming from the Galactic Rim, from a system not in our records. What do they say? The message is simple. Received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on. Nexus frowned at his instruments. The technology signature is unusual. Their communications are primitive by our standards, but the signal is incredibly powerful. How long until they arrive? Based on their transmission delay and standard hyperspace speeds, 41 hours. They'll reach us 6 hours after the Krathan fleet arrives. Thailand felt a mix of hope and despair. Someone was coming to help, but they would be too late. Still, perhaps these unknown beings could rescue survivors. As the hours passed, more details emerged about the approaching Krathan force. General Brutok himself commanded the invasion fleet. He was known for his cruelty even among the Krathan. Worlds that surrendered immediately were simply enslaved. Those that resisted were turned to glass. The Velaran defense fleet moved into position around their homeworld. 300 ships, beautiful and elegant, designed for exploration and peaceful contact. Against them came 2,000 vessels built for one purpose: destruction. Ambassador, a young technician called out, we're detecting additional signals from the unknown responders. They're not just sending one ship, it's an entire fleet. How many vessels? The technician checked his readings twice before answering. Sir, I count over 800 ships, and they're all massive, much larger than standard galactic designs. This news spread quickly through the defense fleet. 800 ships was nearly 3 times the size of Velaran's entire navy. But would it be enough against the Krathan? As the enemy fleet approached, the outer system Captain Nexus received the final intelligence report. Ambassador, the Krathan are broadcasting their standard surrender demand. Submit immediately or face complete annihilation. They're giving us 1 hour to respond. Thailand thought of his people, of the peaceful world that would become a tomb. But something inside him refused to surrender. Send our response, Captain. Tell General Brutok that the Velarin people choose freedom over slavery, even if it means death. The hour passed in tense silence. Then space itself seemed to catch fire as the Krathen fleet opened their assault. Crimson energy beams lashed out at the Velarin defense ships. Shields flared and died under the overwhelming firepower. Outer defense line is falling back, Nexus reported. We've lost 30 ships in the first exchange. Our weapons barely scratched their armor. The battle was hopeless from the start. Velarin technology was defensive, meant to protect and preserve. Krathen weapons were built to kill and destroy. Within 2 hours, half the defense fleet was gone. Ambassador, we're receiving another transmission from the unknown fleet, the communications officer announced. They say they'll arrive in 4 hours. 4 hours. The Krathen would be bombarding the planet's surface by then, but Thailand ordered the message sent to all remaining ships. Hold the line. Help is coming. The Velarin fought with desperate courage. They had no experience with war, but they had something else. The knowledge that every minute they delayed meant more time for evacuation ships to escape with refugees. As the third hour began, long-range sensors detected something that made Captain Nexus stare in disbelief. Ambassador, the approaching fleet, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. They're running their engines far beyond normal safety limits. What do you mean? They're not just coming to help, sir. They're coming angry. The final Krathen assault began just as the unknown fleet reached the edge of the system. General Brutok's ships moved toward the planet, ready to begin the bombardment that would end Velarin civilization. Then space erupted with new arrivals. The ships that emerged from hyperspace were brutal and functional, covered in armor and weapons. They moved with predatory grace like hunters closing on prey. Their arrival changed everything about the tactical situation. "This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the United Earth Fleet," came a voice over the communication channels. "We received your distress call. Any vessel firing on civilians will be considered hostile." Thailand felt his heart skip. These were humans, the mysterious species from the galactic rim. He had heard whispers about them in diplomatic circles, but they had never made contact with the Velarin. General Brutok's response was swift and typical. "Unknown fleet. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. The Krathen Empire claims this system." "The Krathen Empire," Admiral Stone replied, her voice cold as space itself, "is about to learn why Earth is classified as a death world." The first exchange of fire between the human and Krathen fleets lit up the darkness between worlds, and Thailand realized that the galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Someone fighting back against the Empire with the fury of a storm. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with practiced eyes. 800 human vessels had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of an alien solar system, responding to what they thought was a refugee evacuation request. Instead, they found a war zone. "Admiral," Commander Davis reported from the sensor station, "we have approximately 2,000 hostile vessels engaging a much smaller defensive fleet. The defenders are getting slaughtered." Rebecca studied the energy signatures on her screen. The attacking ships used weapons she didn't recognize, but their intentions were clear. "Dr. Webb, what do we know about these species?" Dr. Marcus Webb, the fleet's lead xenobiologist, consulted his database. "The defenders appear to be Velarin, a peaceful civilization known for their crystal technology. The attackers match the profile of the Krathen Empire, aggressive expansionists with a reputation for genocide." And the distress call was definitely from the Velarin. They're asking for evacuation assistance, not military aid. Webb paused. "Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Krathen have never faced serious resistance. They're used to quick victories against pacifist species." Rebecca nodded grimly. Earth's first contact protocols were clear: assess, communicate, and avoid interference in local conflicts. But watching civilians die had never been part of any protocol she could follow. Open a channel to the Krathen fleet, she ordered. Tunis here. Response came quickly, broadcast on multiple frequencies. General Brutak's image appeared on the main screen, a massive reptilian creature with burning red eyes and scarred hide. Unknown vessels, you will withdraw immediately. This system belongs to the Krathen Empire by right of conquest. Rebecca stepped forward. This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the United Earth Fleet. We're responding to a civilian distress call. Withdraw your forces and allow evacuation of non-combatants. Brutak's laugh was like grinding metal. Humans. Yes, we have heard whispers of your pathetic species. You inhabit a single world on the galaxy's edge, playing with primitive technology. His expression turned savage. You have 30 seconds to retreat before I add your ships to the wreckage. Dr. Webb leaned over to Rebecca. Admiral, according to galactic databases, humans are classified as a death world species, but most civilizations don't understand what that means. They're about to learn, Rebecca replied. The 30 seconds expired in tense silence. Then the Krathen opened fire. High Commander Vex, leading the Krathen Advance Squadron, had destroyed 17 civilizations in his career. He expected the human ships to either flee immediately or die in the first volley. Instead, something happened that had never occurred in Krathen military history. The humans shot back. The return fire from the human fleet was unlike anything in Vex's experience. Where galactic civilizations used precise energy beams and elegant plasma weapons, humans used brutal kinetic projectiles, nuclear missiles, and weapon systems that seemed designed by someone who understood violence at a fundamental level. Hi, Commander, his tactical officer reported in a shocked voice. The human vessels are using projectile weapons at relativistic speeds. Our shields are not calibrated for this type of assault. Impossible. No advanced species uses such primitive. The sentence ended as 3 Krathen destroyers exploded simultaneously. The human projectiles had punched through their energy shields like paper, detonating the ships from within. On the Indomitable's bridge, Rebecca watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years, she explained to Dr. Webb. We didn't develop shields and energy weapons first. We perfected the art of making things explode. The human fleet moved with coordinated precision that came from centuries of warfare. While galactic civilizations had forgotten conflict, humans had refined it into a science. Each ship knew its role. Each weapon system had been tested in actual combat, Admiral, Commander Davis called out. The Krathen are regrouping. They're adapting their shield frequencies to our weapons. Then we adapt faster, Rebecca replied. Signal all ships, pattern Delta. Show them why Earth's gravity well produces survivors. The human fleet split into attack groups, moving in 3 dimensions with a fluidity that confused Krathen sensors. Where galactic battles were typically fought in neat formations, humans moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating strikes from unexpected angles. High Commander Vex watched his squadron being systematically dismantled. In 15 minutes of combat, he had lost 40 vessels while destroying only 3 human ships. The humans fought with a savagery and tactical flexibility that defied everything the Krathen knew about galactic warfare. Send a priority message to General Brutak, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcement. These humans are not what they appear to be. The message reached Brutak as he prepared to begin planetary bombardment. The general studied the battle reports with growing unease. No species had ever inflicted such casualties on Krathen forces in the opening phase of battle. War Premier Zulak must be informed, Brutak decided. Signal the home fleet. Tell them we have encountered a species that fights, like us but with greater skill. On Luminous Prime, Ambassador Thylan watched the space battle through long-range sensors with amazement. The elegant Velarin had always assumed that advanced civilizations naturally became peaceful. The humans were proving that assumption catastrophically wrong. Captain Nexus, Thylan called out. Are you recording this engagement? Every second, Ambassador. The human tactical doctrine is unlike anything in our military archives. They're using the Krathen's own aggression against them. As the battle continued, a pattern emerged. The humans weren't just defending, they were hunting. Each successful attack taught them more about Krathan weaknesses, and they adapted their strategy in real time. Dr. Webb studied the sensor readings with fascination. "Admiral, the Velarin are broadcasting on multiple channels. They're trying to understand how we fight so effectively." Rebecca smiled grimly. "Tell them that Earth is a world where everything tries to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. We didn't become apex predators by accident." The first phase of the battle ended with the Krathan Advance Squadron in full retreat. 47 Krathan vessels destroyed compared to 8 human ships lost. But Rebecca knew this was just the beginning. "Long-range sensors detect massive Krathan reinforcements approaching," Commander Davis reported. "Over 5,000 vessels led by something our computers classify as a Dreadnought-class ship." Dr. Webb consulted his files. "That would be War Premier Zulak's personal command vessel. He's the supreme military commander of the Krathan Empire." Rebecca studied the approaching fleet size, 5,000 ships against 800. The odds were worse than anything humanity had faced, but she had learned something important. The Krathan could be beaten. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "We're not retreating. The Velarin people asked for help and Earth keeps its promises." She paused, thinking of the crystal cities below and the gentle beings who had never known war. "Besides, it's been too long since humanity had a proper fight." As the massive Krathan reinforcement fleet approached the system, space itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a collision between the galaxy's most feared empire and the Deathworld species that refused to run. War Premier Zulak stood in the command center of his dreadnought, the Worldbreaker, watching the tactical reports from the advance squadron with disbelief. In his 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever inflicted such losses on Krathan forces. "Show me the battle recordings," he commanded. The holographic display revealed human ships moving with predatory grace, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns that seemed almost artistic in their deadly efficiency. But what disturbed Zulak most was their tactical adaptability. They learned and changed strategy within minutes of first contact. "Analysis," he demanded from his tactical officer. "War Premier, the humans use kinetic weapons at impossible velocities, nuclear devices as standard ammunition, and employ 3-dimensional combat formations. Their ships are heavily armored and built for sustained fighting. Most concerning, they show no fear of death." Zulak studied the data. "What do we know of their homeworld?" "Limited information, sir. Long-range surveys classify it as a Class 12 death world, one of the most dangerous planet types in the galaxy. Extreme weather, aggressive fauna, and gravitational stress that would kill most galactic species." "And this produced them," Zulak mused. "Deploy the planet cracker. If we cannot defeat them in traditional combat, we will deny them what they came to protect." On Luminous Prime, scientist Quira worked frantically in the Crystal Archive, the greatest repository of knowledge in Velarin civilization. The human fleet had bought them precious time, and she was determined to understand their mysterious rescuers. "The translation matrices are finally working," she reported to Ambassador Thylin. "I've been analyzing human communications and their public data broadcasts." "What have you learned?" Quira's normally calm demeanor showed cracks of amazement and horror. "Ambassador, Earth is a world that should not support intelligent life. The gravity alone is 3 times what most species can survive. The weather includes storms that could level our cities. The oceans contain predators larger than our starships. How do they survive?" "They don't just survive, they thrive. Humans evolved in constant competition with their environment and each other. They have fought wars continuously for over 10,000 years. Their entire civilization is built on conflict, adaptation, and survival." Thylin absorbed this information. "Are they dangerous to us?" "That's the remarkable part," Quira said, displaying more human data. "Despite their violent nature, they have a strong protective instinct toward those they consider innocent. Their response to our distress call proves this. They risked their entire fleet to help a species they had never met." In orbit above the Crystal World, Admiral Rebecca Stone studied intelligence reports about the approaching Krathan main fleet. The numbers were overwhelming, but she had faced impossible odds before. Earth's colonial wars had taught humanity valuable lessons about fighting superior forces. "Dr. Webb, what's the largest thing the Krathen have ever destroyed?" she asked. According to galactic records, they once cracked a moon using something called a planet killer device. It uses directed gravitational waves to destabilize planetary cores. Rebecca felt ice form in her stomach. How long would it take them to deploy such a weapon? Based on the energy signatures we're detecting from their main fleet, they already have one charging. Estimated time to full power, 36 hours. Colonel Jake Morrison, commander of the Human Ground Forces, had been listening to the bridge discussion. "Admiral, request permission to take a landing party to the surface. If we can't stop that weapon in space, maybe we can coordinate a ground-based defense." "Granted. Take 500 Marines and establish contact with Velaran military leaders." Ezaki. Jake's shuttles descended toward Luminous Prime. He studied the alien world through his transport's viewports. The crystal cities were beautiful beyond description, but he could see they were built for peace, not war. Gardens and art galleries covered the landscape where Earth would have military installations. Captain Nexus met the human landing party at the main spaceport. The Velaran officer was tall and graceful, with translucent skin that glowed softly in the alien sunlight. Jake had seen many strange things in the galaxy, but the Velaran's obvious gentleness struck him as both admirable and tragic. "Colonel Morrison," Nexus said through a translation device, "welcome to Luminous Prime. Though I fear you have come to witness our world's final hours." "Not if we can help it," Jake replied. "My people didn't come here to watch. We came to fight." As they toured the crystal cities, Jake's Marines marveled at the alien architecture. Everything was designed for harmony and beauty. There were no weapons factories, no military bunkers, no defensive fortifications. "How do you protect your people?" Jake asked. "We have never needed to," Nexus admitted. "The Velaran have known peace for 3,000 years. We solve conflicts through discussion and compromise." Jake's combat-trained mind immediately began identifying defensive positions, supply routes, and strategic locations. "Captain, with your permission, I'd like to establish defensive perimeters around your major population centers." "You believe the Krathen will land ground forces?" "If they're smart, they will. Urban warfare is different from space combat. Maybe we can give them a surprise they won't expect." While Jake organized ground defenses, Admiral Stone received troubling intelligence from her scout ships. The Krathen main fleet was massive beyond anything in human experience. Over 5,000 warships, including vessels larger than Earth space stations. Commander Davis, analysis of Krathen fleet composition. "Admiral, they have us outnumbered 6-1. Their capital ships mount weapons we've never encountered. And that dreadnought, it's the size of a small moon." Rebecca studied the tactical display. Traditional military thinking said retreat was the only option. But humanity had survived by refusing to accept impossible situations. "Signal all ship captains. Conference in 1 hour. We're going to need some creative thinking." The human command conference took place via quantum entanglement communicators, allowing instantaneous discussion across the fleet. Rebecca looked at the faces of her officers, men and women who had volunteered to leave Earth's safety to explore the galaxy. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face the largest military force in galactic history. They have superior numbers, unknown weapons, and a planet-killing device. Any suggestions?" Captain Nina Foster, of the UES Defiant, spoke first. "Admiral, what if we don't fight their fleet directly? Hit-and-run tactics, force them to spread out, make them chase us through the asteroid fields?" "Possible, but it won't stop the planet cracker." Engineer Tom Bradley raised his hand. "Ma'am, I've been studying Krathen technology from the wreckage we collected. Their weapons are powerful but inflexible. They're designed to overwhelm, not to adapt. If we could somehow turn their own power against them..." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Go on." "The planet cracker works by destabilizing gravitational fields. But what if we could redirect that energy, create a feedback loop that would affect their entire fleet instead of the planet?" "How?" Tom grinned. "We'd need to get very close to that dreadnought. Dangerous close. Suicidal close. The conference fell silent. Finally, Rebecca spoke. Tom, start working on the technical requirements. Nina, begin preparing hit-and-run scenarios. Everyone else has spread the word. We're not running, and we're not giving up. The Velarin people trusted us enough to call for help. Earth doesn't abandon its friends. As the human fleet prepared for the largest battle in their history, War Premier Zulak's dreadnought entered the outer system. The planet cracker weapon was almost fully charged, and 5,000 ships moved in perfect formation toward their target. But Zulak had made one crucial error. He assumed the humans would fight like every other species he had conquered. He was about to learn that Earth's children had been forged in a crucible of violence that no other world could match, and when cornered, they didn't surrender. They got creative. The crystal spires of Luminous Prime trembled as Krathen bombardment ships entered the planet's upper atmosphere. Colonel Jake Morrison crouched behind improvised barricades in the city's main plaza, watching alien dropships descend like metallic rain. Marines, remember your training, he spoke into his communicator. These Krathen have never faced guerrilla warfare. We're going to teach them why humans are apex predators. Beside him, Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez checked her weapon's power cell. Sir, the Velarin civilians are still evacuating the lower levels. We need to buy them more time. Jake nodded, watching Velarin families hurry toward the emergency shelters his men had hastily constructed. Children clung to their parents while elderly Velarin moved with dignified grace despite their fear. None of them had ever experienced violence firsthand. Sergeant, take Alpha Squad and establish overlapping fields of fire on the landing zones. Let the first wave think they've secured the area, then hit them hard. As Krathen soldiers emerged from their dropships, they found the Crystal City seemingly abandoned. The aliens moved in tight formations, their heavy armor gleaming and weapons scanning for targets. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics, overwhelming force followed by systematic destruction. They had never fought humans before. The first Krathen squad reached the central plaza when Lisa's Marines opened fire from concealed positions in the crystal towers. The aliens' energy shields flared under the assault, but human weapons had been designed for different principles than galactic standards. Where other species used elegant energy beams, humans used explosive rounds that created shrapnel clouds. The Krathen shields deflected the primary impact but couldn't stop the secondary fragments from finding gaps in their armor. Colonel, Lisa reported, first wave is down, but I count at least 50 more dropships incoming. Jake smiled grimly. Perfect. The more they send, the more we can teach them about human warfare. In orbit above the planet, Admiral Rebecca Stone watched the tactical display as engineer Tom Bradley worked frantically on the planet cracker countermeasure. The massive Krathen dreadnought was building energy for its final weapon, while 5,000 ships moved into bombardment formation. Tom, please tell me you have good news, Rebecca said. Admiral, I think I've figured out how to reverse the gravitational wave, Tom replied, sweat beading on his forehead. But we'll need to get within 5 kilometers of the dreadnought's main weapon array. That means flying straight through their entire fleet. What are our chances? Tom was quiet for a moment. Honestly, nearly zero, but if we don't try, that planet dies along with everyone on it. Rebecca looked at the faces around her bridge. Her crew had volunteered for exploration duty, not a suicide mission. But when she saw their expressions, she realized they had already made their choice. Signal all ships, she ordered. Operation Longshot is a go. All vessels prepare for direct assault on the enemy dreadnought. Deep in the Crystal Archive, scientist Quira worked alongside Dr. Marcus Webb to understand Krathen technology. The human xenobiologist had landed during the initial evacuation to help coordinate with Velarin scientists. Dr. Webb, Quira said, I've been studying your species' historical records. Humans have fought over 100 major wars in the past millennium alone. How do you maintain your compassion despite such violence? Marcus paused in his analysis of Krathen shield frequencies. That's the thing about humans, Kira. We fight fiercely, but usually for something we believe in. Right now, we're fighting for people we've never met because they asked for help. But surely you must want something in return? Territory, resources, tribute? Marcus smiled. Earth has everything we need. What we want is to know we're not alone in caring about right and wrong. An explosion rocked the archive as Krathan forces pushed deeper into the city. Through the crystal walls, they could see human Marines falling back in organized retreats, drawing the aliens into carefully prepared kill zones. On the surface, Jake's forces had turned the elegant crystal city into a maze of ambush points and defensive positions. The Krathan, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers, found themselves fighting an enemy that used the urban environment as a weapon. "Sir," reported Private Chen over the radio, "the aliens are getting frustrated. They're starting to target civilian areas out of spite." Jake felt anger burn in his chest. "All units, priority shift. Forget tactical advantage. Our job is protecting non-combatants. If the Krathan want to target civilians, they go through us first." This decision changed everything about the ground battle. Instead of fighting from optimal positions, human Marines moved to wherever Velaran civilians needed protection. They took casualties they could have avoided, accepted tactical disadvantages they could have prevented. But something remarkable happened. As Velaran refugees saw human soldiers risking their lives for alien children, word spread throughout the evacuation centers. These strange, violent beings from the death world were dying to protect people they had never met. Elder Solemn, the eldest member of the Velaran Council, watched a human medic treating wounded civilians in an emergency shelter. The medic had been shot twice but continued working, his hand steady despite his injuries. "Why?" Elder Solemn asked through the translation device. The medic looked up briefly. "Because it's right," he said simply, then returned to treating a young Velaran's injuries. In space, the human fleet began its impossible assault on the Krathan dreadnought. The plan was insane. 800 ships charging directly at 5,000, hoping to punch through enemy lines and reach the planet-killer weapon before it could fire. "All ships, attack pattern Omega," Rebecca commanded. "We're not trying to win a fleet engagement, we're trying to save a world." The human fleet split into 3 groups attacking from different vectors simultaneously. The Krathan responded predictably, concentrating their fire on the largest group while the other 2 slipped through their formation. Captain Nina Foster commanded the lead assault group, her ship taking tremendous damage as she pushed toward the dreadnought. "Admiral, we're not going to make it at this rate. The Krathan are adapting to our tactics." "Negative, Nina. Hold course. Tom, how much longer do you need?" 30 seconds to optimal position, Admiral. But these energy readings, if I'm wrong about the reversal sequence, the weapon could explode instead of redirecting. And if it explodes, it takes out everything within 50,000 kilometers, including us. Rebecca looked at her crew one final time. These people had signed up to explore the galaxy, not to die protecting strangers. But she saw no hesitation in their faces. "Do it, Tom." As Engineer Bradley activated his jury-rigged countermeasure device, the planet cracker weapon reached full charge. For a moment that stretched like eternity, 2 massive energies warred against each other in the space between stars. On the planet below, Jake's Marines made their final stand in the central plaza. They were outnumbered 50-1, ammunition running low, but they held their positions around the civilian evacuation points. "Colonel," Lisa called out, "the last transport is loading now. Civilian evacuation is complete." Jake looked at his remaining Marines, 37 soldiers who had volunteered to stay behind and ensure no Krathan forces could threaten the refugees. "You've all done humanity proud," he said into his communicator. Then space itself seemed to catch fire as the planet cracker weapon discharged, not toward the planet, but back through the Krathan fleet in a cascade of gravitational destruction that tore warships apart like paper. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a brilliant star that suddenly flared in the darkness. When the light faded, War Premier Zulak's dreadnought was gone, along with nearly half his fleet. In the sudden silence that followed, Jake's communicator crackled with Admiral Stone's voice. "All ground forces, this is Fleet Command. The planet killer has been neutralized. Repeat, the planet is safe." As Krathan survivors fled the system in disorder, The human fleet regrouped around Luminous Prime. They had accomplished the impossible, but the cost had been enormous. 200 human ships were gone, along with thousands of crew members who would never see Earth again. But as rescue shuttles brought Jake's Marines back to their ships, and as Velaran refugees returned to their crystal cities, something had changed in the galaxy. Word was already spreading to distant worlds. The humans from the Death World had fought the Krathan Empire and won. More importantly, they had fought not for conquest or glory, but simply because someone had asked for help. 6 months after the Battle of Luminous Prime, Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the rebuilt central plaza of the Crystal City, watching Velaran children play alongside human Marines. The scene would have been impossible before the war. Two species, separated by millions of years of evolution, now sharing stories and laughter. Admiral, Ambassador Thylan approached, his translucent skin glowing with health and contentment. The Council has reached its decision regarding your proposal. Rebecca turned to face the Velaran diplomat. In the month since the battle, she had grown to respect these gentle beings and their commitment to peace. But the galaxy was still a dangerous place, and peace required protection. The Velaran Council agrees to the Mutual Defense Pact, Thylan announced. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our worlds as staging points for the human Velaran Alliance fleet. And in return, Earth pledges to defend Velaran space against any aggressor, Rebecca replied formally. But Ambassador, you understand what this means. We're not just talking about trade agreements or cultural exchange, we're creating something new in the galaxy, a military alliance based on protection rather than conquest. Dr. Marcus Webb joined the conversation, carrying a data pad filled with intelligence reports. Admiral, the ramifications are already spreading across known space. Since news of our victory reached other worlds, we've received 47 requests for similar defense agreements. The requests came from species across the galaxy. Peaceful traders threatened by pirates, scientific colonies menaced by resource raiders, entire civilizations living in fear of the remaining Krathan warlords. Word had spread that the humans from the Death World fought for others, not for themselves. Show me the priority cases, Rebecca said. Marcus activated his holographic display. The Helix Confederation, 12 worlds specializing in medical research. They're being extorted by the Ravager fleet for protection money. The Keth Republic, famous for their art and music, faces invasion from Krathan splinter groups. And the Harmony Collective, they're pacifists like the Velaran, but their mining colonies are under constant attack. Rebecca studied each case carefully. Earth's fleet was still rebuilding from the losses at Luminous Prime, but she couldn't ignore civilizations asking for help. What's our current strength? 600 operational vessels, plus 300 Velaran support ships equipped with human weapons, reported Captain Nina Foster, who had survived the dreadnought assault with her ship barely intact. Not enough to cover the entire galaxy, but sufficient for targeted interventions. Colonel Jake Morrison, now wearing the insignia of the Alliance Ground Forces, added his perspective. Admiral, I've been training Velaran volunteers in defensive tactics. They're quick learners, and their knowledge of galactic geography is invaluable. We can establish rapid response teams on key worlds. The transformation of the galaxy's political landscape was happening faster than anyone had anticipated. The Krathan Empire, once the most feared force in known space, had fractured into competing warlord factions after the destruction of War Premier Zulak's fleet. Without their central command structure, former Krathan territories erupted in civil wars and independence movements. There's something else, Dr. Webb said, his expression troubled. Our intelligence networks report that several major powers are studying human military tactics. The Dominion Assembly is retrofitting their fleet with kinetic weapons. The Star Hegemony has begun recruiting mercenaries from Death World species. This development concerned Rebecca deeply. Humanity's strength came not just from their weapons, but from their willingness to sacrifice for others. If other species adopted human tactics without human values, the galaxy could become even more violent than before. We need to be careful about what we share, she decided. Military cooperation with our allies, but our most advanced weapons stay under human control. Scientist Quira, now serving as the Velaran liaison to the human fleet, had been studying galactic response patterns to the new alliance. "Admiral, there's a fascinating development. Several species that were previously aggressive are now requesting peaceful contact. The Saurian clans, the Void Hunters, even some former Krathan client states. They all want to negotiate rather than fight." Why the sudden change? They've realized that attacking innocents might bring human retaliation. Your species has created something unprecedented, deterrence through the threat of righteous violence. 3 weeks later, the first joint human-Velaran fleet responded to a distress call from the Harmony Collective. Their mining colony on Kepler 442b was under siege by Krathan remnants led by a warlord named Grimjaw, who had declared himself the new war premier. The joint fleet consisted of 200 human warships and 50 Velaran vessels equipped with hybrid technology. As they approached the besieged world, Captain Nina Foster commanded the lead squadron from her rebuilt ship, the UES Defiant II. "Admiral," Nina reported, "long-range sensors detect 15 Krathan vessels in orbit around the colony. They're bombarding civilian shelters." Rebecca's response was swift and decisive. "All ships, battle stations. These Krathan want to play war premier? Let's remind them why that position became vacant." The battle was over in 20 minutes. The Krathan remnants, expecting to face helpless miners, instead encountered a coordinated fleet that fought with precision and overwhelming firepower. Grimjaw's flagship tried to escape, but human pursuit ships had been designed for exactly this scenario. As the smoke cleared, Jake's Marines landed to secure the mining colony. They found grateful families emerging from shelters, many of them species that had never seen humans before. Children who had been terrified hours earlier now watched in wonder as armored soldiers distributed emergency supplies. "Colonel Morrison," said the colony administrator, a crystalline being whose name translated as Harmony Seeker, "how can we ever repay this debt?" Jake's answer became famous across the galaxy. "You don't owe us anything. Just remember that when someone else needs help, you pass it forward." Within 6 months, the Human-Velaran Alliance had grown to include 15 species. The joint fleet operated from bases scattered across Alliance space, responding to threats with increasing efficiency. More importantly, the mere existence of the Alliance was changing how galactic politics functioned. Pirate fleets found their targets defended by rapid response squadrons. Aggressive empires discovered that expansion through conquest now carried the risk of human intervention. Peaceful species that had lived in fear for centuries began to thrive under Alliance protection. But the most significant change was philosophical. The galaxy had spent millions of years accepting that might made right, that strong species naturally dominated weak ones. Humanity had introduced a radical concept that strength should be used to protect the innocent. "Admiral," Dr. Webb reported during a staff meeting aboard the Indomitable, "we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Species that were previously enemies are forming their own mutual defense pacts. The Saurian clans have allied with the Peaceful Traders Coalition. The Void Hunters are offering protection to scientific expeditions instead of raiding them." Rebecca smiled at this news. "The galaxy is learning that cooperation is more effective than conquest." Ambassador Thylan, who had become one of Rebecca's closest advisors, added his perspective. "The humans have given us something we never imagined possible. Hope that the strong will protect the weak instead of exploiting them." The transformation reached its culmination when a priority distress signal arrived from the edge of known space. The message was brief but urgent. "Unknown aggressors attacking peaceful worlds, entire species facing extinction. Please help." To why? Signal's origin point was beyond the galaxy's outer rim, in unexplored space where no Alliance ship had ever traveled. The distance alone made response questionable. It would take months to reach the source, and there was no guarantee they would arrive in time. "Admiral," Captain Nina said during the emergency briefing, "it could be a trap. We'd be operating far from any support, with no knowledge of local conditions or enemy capabilities." Rebecca studied the star charts, considering the risks. Earth's doctrine had always been to help those who asked, but this mission would push their capabilities to the limit. "What's our fleet strength?" 400 human vessels, 200 Velaran ships, and 100 vessels from other Alliance species, Nina reported. The largest combined fleet in galactic history. Jake added his assessment. Ground forces include human marines, Velaran engineers, Harmony collective medics, and volunteer units from 6 other species. We're not just a military force anymore, we're a rescue operation. Rebecca made her decision. Signal all Alliance fleets. We're responding to the distress call. It's time to show the galaxy that our protection extends beyond known space. As the massive Alliance fleet prepared for the longest journey in human history, news of their mission spread across civilized worlds. Species that had once feared the darkness between stars now watched with hope as the Deathworld humans led a coalition into the unknown. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching 700 starships form up for hyperspace jump. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone on the galactic rim. Now they led an alliance that represented the best aspects of dozens of civilizations. All ships report ready for jump, Admiral, Nina announced. Signal the fleet, Rebecca ordered. This is Admiral Stone to all Alliance vessels. We're heading into uncharted space to help people we've never met, face dangers we can't predict. But that's what we do. That's who we are. The strong protect the weak and the brave stand for the innocent. She paused, thinking of Earth's blue skies and the crystal cities of Luminous Prime, of children playing in peace because soldiers had been willing to fight. Jump when ready. Let's go remind the universe that hope isn't dead. It just needed better weapons. As the Alliance fleet vanished into hyperspace, bound for unknown dangers and impossible odds, the galaxy watched and waited. The age of galactic bullies was ending, replaced by something unprecedented in cosmic history. A civilization that grew stronger by protecting others rather than conquering them. The Deathworld humans had kept their promise, and in doing so, had changed the meaning of strength itself.